Welcome to Module 1 of the ADHD Executive Advantage Program. Over the next few lessons, we're going to fundamentally transform how you understand your ADHD brain in leadership. This first lesson is called The Hidden Advantage because that's exactly what we're going to uncover, how your ADHD traits are actually leadership superpowers waiting to be activated. Let's begin with a story that might sound very familiar. A few years ago, I was coaching a CEO who had built a successful tech company from the ground up. During our first session, he shared something that stopped me in my tracks. He said exactly what you see on this slide. Everyone sees my success, but what they don't see is that I feel like I'm constantly one step away from being exposed as a fraud. My ADHD makes me feel like I'm succeeding despite my brain, not because of it. Does this sound familiar? If it does, you're not alone in this feeling. I smiled when he said this because I recognize that feeling so intimately. I've walked this path too. I transitioned from software development to leadership coaching, and for years I carried that same belief that my ADHD was something to overcome, to compensate for, to hide. But here's what changed everything for me and what I've seen transform hundreds of executives I've coached. Your ADHD isn't a bug in your operating system. It's actually a feature, a powerful one. Let's look at some numbers that might surprise you. 21% of managers self-report having ADHD traits. That's more than 1 in 5 leaders. We're talking about over 100 million adults with ADHD worldwide, many of them in leadership roles. And here's the kicker. At least $3 billion companies were founded by leaders with ADHD. This isn't a coincidence, and it's not about people succeeding despite their ADHD. It's because certain ADHD traits, when properly channeled, create exceptional leaders. The business world celebrates innovators who think different, leaders who can pivot quickly, executives who thrive in crisis, and visionaries who see connections others miss. They're describing ADHD traits, but they just don't realize it. Look at these examples. Richard Branson, founder of Virgin Group, has ADHD and dyslexia. He turned what others saw as limitations into innovative thinking and risk-taking abilities that built a global empire. David Neeleman, who founded JetBlue Airways, credits his ADHD for his ability to think differently and innovate in the airline industry. He didn't hide his ADHD, he leveraged it. Ingvar Kamprad built IKEA into a global empire using his ADHD traits as creative advantages. His nonlinear thinking revolutionized how we think about furniture and retail. These aren't outliers or exceptions. They're examples of what happens when ADHD traits are leveraged as strengths rather than suppressed as weaknesses. Let me share a story that perfectly illustrates this transformation. One of my clients, a chief marketing officer, used to apologize constantly for her scattered thinking in meetings. She'd jump from topic to topic, making connections that seemed random to others. Through our work together, she realized this wasn't scattered thinking at all. It was advanced pattern recognition. Her brain was processing multiple data streams simultaneously and identifying connections that linear thinkers would need hours or days to discover. We reframed her approach. Instead of apologizing, she started saying exactly what you see on this slide. I'm seeing a connection between these 3 things. Let me walk you through it. Her team went from being confused to being amazed. She wasn't scattered. She was synthesizing complex information at remarkable speed. This brings us to the superpowers hiding in your ADHD brain. First, there's hyperfocus. What you might have seen as inconsistent attention is actually the ability to achieve flow states that other leaders can only dream about. When you're engaged, you can outwork and outthink anyone. Then there's your innovation drive, that restlessness you feel. It's not a lack of discipline. It's your brain's drive for novelty and innovation. In a business world that changes at lightning speed, having a brain that craves newness isn't a liability, it's a competitive advantage. And your emotional intelligence, what might have been labeled as too much throughout your life, is actually sophisticated emotional awareness. You read rooms differently, you sense hidden tensions and opportunities that others miss. You connect with people on a level that builds extraordinary loyalty and trust. Let's talk about what's actually happening in your ADHD brain that creates these advantages. Your prefrontal cortex, which handles executive function, works differently, but different doesn't mean deficient. It means you process information through creative pathways that others can't access as easily. Your dopamine system, which is atypical in ADHD, makes you seek reward and stimulation more intensely. In leadership terms, this translates to higher risk tolerance, greater innovation drive, and the ability to inspire others with your passion and energy. The default mode network in your brain is the same network responsible for creativity, innovation, and those aha moments of insight. While others need to work to activate creative thinking, your brain defaults to it. And here's something fascinating. Crisis situations activate peak performance in ADHD brains. I worked with a CFO who couldn't focus during routine financial reviews, but was absolutely brilliant during merger negotiations and emergency funding rounds. His brain came alive under pressure. We stopped trying to fix his attention during routine meetings and restructured his role to maximize high stakes decision making. His performance soared. This brings me to the most important message of this lesson. The problem isn't your ADHD. The problem is that you've been taught to see it as a problem. You've spent years, maybe decades, trying to fit into systems and structures designed for neurotypical brains. But what if you stopped adapting and started optimizing? What if, instead of trying to minimize your ADHD traits, you started maximizing them? You're not a broken neurotypical leader. You're a perfectly designed neurodivergent one. The business world needs exactly what you have: your different perspective, your innovative thinking, your crisis leadership, your authentic energy. One of my clients said something that still gives me chills. If I really believed my ADHD was an advantage, I'd stop apologizing for who I am and start leveraging who I am. I'd stop trying to be a mediocre neurotypical leader and start being an exceptional neurodivergent one. That's exactly right. And that's exactly what we're going to do throughout this program. Welcome to the hidden advantage. Welcome to understanding that your ADHD isn't something you succeed despite, it's something you succeed because of. In our next lesson, we'll dive into your unique neurodivergent wiring and start mapping exactly how your specific ADHD traits can become leadership advantages. But for now, sit with this truth. You haven't been struggling with a deficit. You've been developing superpowers. The question now isn't whether your ADHD can be an advantage in leadership. The question is whether you're ready to claim it.